My name's Lauren Coape-Arnold. I'm the Global Head of Citizenship at Apollo Global Management and also the Executive Director of the Apollo Opportunity Foundation. So as Global Head of Citizenship, I work on a lot of employee engagement efforts for our company through philanthropy, volunteerism, and special initiatives. Part of what's really fun about this job is that it is very internal. What do my employees want to do? How do I get them to care about the world around them? What gets them to tick? But it's also very external. I'm working with many different nonprofits and NGOs to understand their needs, to try to play matchmaker between my company's employees and the communities around us. So as a global company, we want to ensure that our programs are global and equitable around the entire world, no matter where our team is based. So we do have global employees, and my team and I work to really nurture each of those offices to find the types of partners that are best for their culture and for their community. We like to offer a breadth of activity types because we know our employees have such a range of interests, and it's our team's job to really find what is going to get that colleague to step away from his or her desk to go volunteer and give back. There's probably no consistent day. Every day is different, which is part of what keeps it really fun and fresh for me. Some days I am doing all meetings with colleagues, big board meetings or steering committees. Some days I'm out in the community volunteering alongside my colleagues, whether that's cleaning up Central Park or going to a dog shelter and caring for the animals or mentoring students through some of the programs we support. Other days it's meeting with different nonprofits and understanding what they're trying to pursue or achieve with their mission and evaluating them just like an investor would look at a company. I'm looking at nonprofits to understand the likelihood or the strength of a partnership that we could build together.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how you ended up in your role right now? I know you work more on like social impact and like bridging the private and public sectors. Have you always worked in that intersection, or were you more concentrated on the private sector or more concentrated on the public sector, and what made you find this good medium?
So I had no idea this was a career when I was growing up or even in college. Coming out of undergrad, I knew that I wanted to live in New York City and that it was going to be expensive and I had to pay the bills and be independent. So I went into investment banking because that was going to be an incredible training ground and help me pay rent and electricity on the first time living on my own. I had no interest in staying in investment banking. It really was, let me show up here, learn as much as I can. But I was already thinking about what comes next because content-wise, intellectually, I just wasn't stimulated by the material. So I had started talking to a few different departments at the bank I was at. And it was through that I realized, wow, there's a lot of other areas in this industry, which I really felt comfortable with. And I enjoyed the fast-paced nature, the really competitive aspect, being surrounded by brilliant people. There was so much about finance I liked, even though I didn't want to do finance necessarily. And at the time, I was looking for these lateral moves at the firm. It was Lehman Brothers, so this was in the early 2008, right before they went under. So all of the opportunities that I had begun exploring were closed. So I actually took another job and went to a much smaller company, a hedge fund, where again, I would say perhaps skeptical. I don't want to work at a hedge fund. I don't want to stay in finance, but I transitioned into investor relations. And in investor relations, I was dealing a lot more with clients and people, and I could take the quantitative skills I developed in banking and apply it in a different capacity, still within the broader world of finance. And while I was at that hedge fund, they launched a foundation. And they said, we want everyone to be involved with the foundation. We want everyone to contribute to the foundation and also be involved in our process. So in my investor relations seat, I started getting more and more involved with the foundation, just like a hobby at work. And the more interaction I had with that world, the more I realized this is really fun. This is stimulating my brain in a way that is getting me excited again. I really want to learn more about this. And I still didn't totally understand that it could be a job, but the more involvement I had with the foundation, the more I recognized, wow, this is actually a job. This is so cool. I had never heard of the term social enterprise, but suddenly I was determined to break into that field. And I decided to pursue business school as the way to make this big jump from the for-profit to the nonprofit or social sector. I applied to a bunch of business schools that had deep curricular offerings in social enterprise, social impact, philanthropy, and had got into my first choice school with the most course offerings. So I was so excited. And I was in my exit interview at this hedge fund saying, thank you so much for exposing me to this as a world. It's completely changed my career path in this totally unexpected way. But I'm so grateful to you for founding this foundation and giving me the opportunity to discover this was a new passion. And the founder of the hedge fund looked at me and said, if you're so interested in it, why are you going to school? Why don't you stay here and run the foundation? We're looking for an executive director. And it stopped me dead in my tracks. And I said, but I actually have already moved out of New York City. I've moved up to New Haven where I'm going to go to school. Are you serious? Do you really want me to stay and run the foundation? And he said, yes, I think let's give it a shot. So I actually wound up deferring school for a year and became the director of a foundation. And it was an incredible learning experience. But through that year, two really important lessons came out of it. One, I realized, yes, this dream job is as much of a dream job as I thought it was. I love it. And two, I'm still so early in my career. There is so much I don't know. School is still probably the right choice for me. It was hard to walk away from that dream job, to give it up in a highly coveted industry, highly coveted role. But I wanted to really build a deeper foundation of skills and broader understanding of how all the sectors work together. So I did go and pursue my MBA, and then since business school have been still in this world of finance, but very strongly on the funder, grant maker, philanthropy side.
What do you think are just like your final words of advice for emerging leaders and young people who want to tap into fields like yours, where you mentioned that you didn't know that it existed before? Like, how can we learn more about these opportunities?
Those little tastes of internships are so important. My MBA summer, the advice I was given was, you've only worked in the corporate sector. You should really try the nonprofit sector if you want to pursue this lifelong career in social impact. You should have sensitivity to both sides of the table. And so that summer I worked at a nonprofit, but it was actually a very established foundation. I quickly sensed that that office environment was not for me. It was filled with a lot of academics who were doing deep research on issues. And to me, the office felt like a library, which was great when I was in college. I loved a library environment to go write my thesis and be focused and in the zone. But in a work environment, I wanted more collegial interaction and liveliness and collaboration that just gets sparked from passing someone in the halls. So don't underestimate the short stints as a great way to learn and try on a new hat to see if that is something that you get excited about. For me, some of the greatest learnings I had were just by tagging along to meetings and asking, hey, can I join you for this? And sitting like a fly on the wall in the back of the room, but observing how people interacted, the body language, how my boss might have managed a difficult question or being put on the spot by a client. And those were opportunities that were free. You just have to ask. And now, as so many firms have shifted to remote work, really making sure you make the most of the in-office time by shadowing, attending meetings, asking what you can join. As AI picks up, the interpersonal interactions are going to be so much more important and so much more valuable to practice over and over of how do you show up as a person in a meeting? What type of presence do you have? What type of influence does that bring in meetings? I think that is incredibly important and such a ripe learning opportunity just by sitting in the room and observing.